Hey guys, tonight we plunge straight into the rice straw padded sandals of Edo Period Samurai. And let's just say, their snack choices might test your stomach more than any katana duel. Picture this. You're in a quiet courtyard at dawn, mist curling along stone lanterns, your hand resting on your sword, and in the other, a chilled strip of fermented horse intestines. Yep, that's breakfast. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is in your part of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tug your kimono sleeve tighter against the morning chill, and bite into something soft, salty, and reeking of earth. It's sakuraniku no kusarizume, fermented horse offal wrapped in bamboo leaves and buried in clay pots for weeks. You're not being punished. This is a delicacy, or at least, it was to the Edo period samurai caste. There's a weird pride to it. The stink, the toughness, the sheer intensity of the flavor. You chew like your ancestors are watching. Maybe they are. This isn't just some survival ration. The Edo elite, especially those who weren't constantly in battle, had time and very adventurous palates. Samurai culture by the 18th century had shifted from constant warfare to a more bureaucratic, administrative life. But the snacks, they still carried the echoes of wartime resourcefulness, and sometimes sheer culinary bravado. Imagine serving fermented intestines at a tea gathering. Sounds unthinkable, but if you were a mid-ranking samurai trying to impress a visiting superior, you'd lay it out next to pickled turnips and cold buckwheat noodles, maybe garnished with wild Sancho pepper or thin-sliced daikon. It's all about presentation. You'd try not to gag, and then you'd apologize if they finished it too fast, insulting your hospitality. Historians still argue whether these potent offal dishes were actually enjoyed or merely tolerated to show status and stoicism. Some call it acquired taste. Others call it a test of loyalty to tradition. Either way, your nose burns, your jaw aches, and you are absolutely not wasting this morsel of rare, lovingly rotted horse gut. There's also a ritual side to it. Certain warrior clans viewed these snacks as a nod to their ancestral nomadic roots. Think Mongol-influenced food traditions passed down the archipelago and quietly preserved in samurai pantries. It's not just about food. It's identity packed into a bite. Literally, you're chewing history. And if you're wondering, why not cow intestines? Good question. But remember, horses were seen differently. They were noble animals, battlefield companions. Eating one wasn't just for nutrition. It was an act laced with emotion. Honor your steed in death by making use of every part. It's grim. It's poetic. It's very Edo. You finish the last bite and wash it down with bitter green tea so strong your teeth vibrate. The sun's barely risen, but your day has already involved something most modern humans wouldn't touch without a hazmat suit. To be fair, not every samurai craved this stuff. There are diaries, yes, handwritten in careful brushstrokes, where younger warriors poke fun at the old-timers with their clay pots of stink. But those same elders would raise an eyebrow and mutter about soft stomachs and fragile honor. It's generational food shaming. With intestines. A little background, fermented food in Japan wasn't fringe or strange. Quite the opposite. It was preservation tech meets spiritual practice. From miso to natto to these awful delights, fermentation was everywhere. And while you might wrinkle your nose now, consider that people once believed this specific preparation could build inner fire, calm anxiety before duels, and even sharpen tactical thinking. One odd tidbit: some warriors claimed that fermented horse offal, eaten before battle, would help them smell so bad up close, enemies would hesitate. Is that true? Probably not. But given the odor, honestly, maybe, by now, you've stopped gagging. There's something comforting in the weight of the clay jar, the ritual of unwrapping the bamboo leaves, the slow chew. It's not just a meal. It's a moment of reflection, a private act before the day's duty, maybe a prayer with your mouth. You glance over at a fellow retainer squatting near the embers, nose wrinkled, eyes watering, but still chewing dutifully. You give a tiny nod. Brothers in arms! And in guts. You brush the last sticky bits of fermented horse gut from your fingers and start your morning patrol toward the castle gate. The gravel crunches beneath your sandals, a slow rhythm against the rustling of pine trees overhead. The scent of camellia oil and burned rice husks lingers in the air. But something else cuts through, a strange, nutty sweetness, with just the faintest hint of sting. You follow your nose to a low table where another gate guard is hunched over a plate of something speckled. It looks like sesame crackers, until you realize those speckles are wasp bodies. Big ones, whole ones, legs, wings, eyeballs, everything. Welcome to Hachinoko Senbei, wasp crackers. You're not dreaming, and yes, you're expected to try one. You crouch, pick one up. It's warm, a touch sticky. You take a bite. The crunch is deep and layered like biting through peanut brittle. If peanut brittle stared back at you with tiny compound eyes. This isn't a prank, not even close. Wasp crackers were a real, if peculiar, form of protein supplementation during the Edo period, especially in the more mountainous and insect-happy regions of Japan. Samurai stationed far from the capital or on long patrols through less urban areas often relied on whatever the locals had learned to eat. That meant bugs, and it turns out hornets, once boiled and roasted, actually have a nutty, earthy flavor, packed with protein, low on fat, great shelf life. What more could a noble warrior want? Now you're probably wondering how they got them. Picture a group of farmers setting handmade traps baited with fruit mash. The hornets crawl in, can't get out, and are scooped into baskets to be boiled alive. Delightful, right? There's even a technique for tracking wild nests using tiny flags tied to hornets' legs. If that sounds insane, well, it kind of is. But it worked. Once cooked, the hornets were mixed into a sweetened rice syrup, pressed between two slabs of senbei dough, and grilled over charcoal until crispy. Add a drizzle of honey if you're feeling festive. This wasn't some desperate famine food. This was a treat, especially among guards and lower-ranking retainers, who needed to stay alert and energized during long shifts on cold mornings. Historians still argue whether wasp crackers were truly a samurai innovation or just an adopted peasant recipe elevated through proximity. Some documents suggest high-ranking officials genuinely enjoyed them. Others hint that the upper class merely tolerated the idea to appear hardy and connected to the common people. Either way, you're chewing on bug bits. You sip a little barley tea to chase it down. Your companion gestures to another stack of crackers. They're better with chili flakes, he mutters. You nod solemnly as if discussing tea ceremony techniques instead of insect cuisine. And here's the kicker. Wasps weren't just a snack, they were part of folk medicine. Crushed hornet powder was believed to boost vitality and heat the blood. Some samurai carried hornet extract pills on long journeys, claiming they gave strength for walking and courage in battle. Was it real? Modern science says yes to a degree. Wasps contain amino acids that stimulate energy metabolism. But mostly it was a mental edge. Crunch your bugs. Feel like a beast. There's even a weird little fringe theory from one Edo scholar that hornets whisper to the warrior spirit because of their hive-minded aggression. Sound a little mystical? Sure. But the Edo period blurred the lines between nature, spirit, and snack all the time. You finish your cracker and stand. Bits of wasp wing cling to your molars. The sun is just clearing the tiled rooftops, the banners above the castle fluttering in a lazy breeze. You pat your stomach. Not full, not empty. Satisfied, and slightly disturbed. You pass another group of samurai walking in formation. One of them has a pouch hanging from his obi barely sealed. The smell leaks out, sweet, smoky, and just a little bit acrid. More wasp crackers? Probably. They trade them like kids trade gum wrappers. You make your way toward the inner courtyard. The stone steps warm beneath your feet. Around you, Edo moves gently into another day. Vendors setting up, rice steamers puffing, birds chattering in the high branches. And somewhere close by, another batch of hornets is being stirred into syrup. You pause and wonder, if you offered one to your modern self, what would happen? Immediate screaming? Maybe. But back here in this moment, it's just a snack. A strange one. A brave one. And definitely not your last. The courtyard stretches behind you as you wander toward the edge of the estate, where stone paths give way to a gravel trail winding toward the river. The morning haze hasn't yet burned off, and the air smells like pine needles and wet earth. You're hungry again. Because yes, even after fermented horse intestines and wasp crackers, the stomach of an Edo samurai doesn't exactly rest. Your destination? A wide flat river where glistening ayu fish dart beneath the surface, delicate and fast, silver-scaled and fluttering like thrown fans. But you're not here to fish. You're here to snack, specifically on something that looks raw, tastes raw, and somehow only sort of is. You crouch by the riverbank next to a portable iron stove resting on packed dirt. On it, a flat stone sits heating under a modest flame. Your companion, a grizzled veteran with 3 fingers and a dry sense of humor, pulls a wriggling ayu from a shallow basket, fillets it in a single practiced motion, and slaps it down on the hot stone, skin side first. You wince. The fish is still moving. He doesn't flinch. "Fresh as taste," he mumbles. You think you might be in a horror movie. This is kawarayaki, a strange riverside snack method where lightly dressed river fish are seared directly on heated flat stones. There's something primal about it. No pan, no skewer, just raw protein sizzling on nature's frying pan. And you don't wait for it to cook through. Once the flesh is barely opaque, you slice it off, sprinkle it with coarse salt, and pop it straight into your mouth. The texture is soft and chewy, still tinged with that translucent freshness you associate more with sashimi. A splash of yuzu juice adds a flash of brightness, and just for good measure someone hands you a little cup of rice vinegar to swish between bites. It's a refined ritual hiding behind a savage preparation. Mainstream records from the Edo period describe samurai treating this method like a meditative experience. It wasn't just about eating, it was about controlling heat, timing cuts, practicing awareness. You stare at the fish. Is it blinking? You're not sure anymore. Historians still argue whether this fast-seared raw fish method evolved from battlefield necessity or riverside leisure. Some say it began as an impromptu survival meal, heated stones, fresh kill, zero tools. Others argue it became a sort of riverside sport for bored middle-ranking samurai looking to show off their slicing skills. You notice how each man treats his fish like a calligraphy scroll. Fluid movements, minimal waste, maximum respect. The stone crackles beneath the meat, releasing tiny clouds of briny steam that curl into your face like incense. You taste earth, water, fire, and something else, a kind of defiance, as if by refusing to fully cook the fish, you're denying softness, denying fear. There's a fringe belief among some Edo-era martial schools that eating food still partially alive, even metaphorically, transfers its spirit into you. They wrote poems about it, even choreographed sword forms inspired by the slippery life of the ayu. Sound ridiculous? Probably. But your teeth are halfway through another half-cooked fish, so who are you to argue? One elder shares a tale between bites. A lone samurai who lived by a river for 40 years, eating nothing but kawarayaki and river moss, claiming it tuned his senses to hear enemy footsteps from miles away. Did he exist? Maybe. Is it true? No clue. But the way this guy tells it, you believe every word. The sun climbs higher. Your stomach is warm. The raw edge of the fish isn't as jarring now. It's tender, marbled with just enough fat to coat your mouth, in that lingering sweetness so prized in Japanese cuisine. You sip more vinegar, letting your body reset. Nearby, someone jokes about whether the fish's soul is now following you around the compound. Another samurai, deadpan, replies, "Good. Maybe it'll help me win my next duel." You toss the last bite into your mouth and rise, brushing stray grains of salt from your hakama. The stone sizzles behind you, still cooking another man's lunch. A dragonfly whirs past your ear, and the river gurgles softly beside you. You take one final look at the water, where more ayu shimmer like tiny silver knives. For a moment the world feels suspended. Fire and water, life and death, raw and cooked. The samurai didn't invent paradox, but they sure learned to snack inside of it. Your fingers still smell faintly of river fish as you walk back toward the training grounds, where the soft thwop of wooden swords colliding carries across the gravel. Your mouth feels raw in a way, bright, but you're not done snacking, not even close. Today is a long day, and every long day needs a sour little secret weapon tucked inside your sleeve. Literally, you reach inside your armor's inner pouch and retrieve a small, wrinkled orb the color of dried blood, a umeboshi, pickled plum. You pop it into your mouth like a warrior's warhead and immediately regret everything. Your face folds into a dozen creases. Saliva floods your mouth. Your eyes twitch. It is unbelievably sour, like someone compressed a lightning strike into a fruit. These little salted bombs were essential to the samurai diet, not for enjoyment, but for survival. Umeboshi, despite their puckering power, were prized for their ability to preserve energy, prevent illness, and restore appetite under stress. You chew, eyes watering, and try to look stoic. The salt content is astronomical, sometimes more than 20%, which kept them shelf-stable for years. That made them perfect to carry into war or stash inside armor compartments. More than one samurai credited the umeboshi with staving off dysentery or heat stroke, and given the water quality of the time, probably not an exaggeration, but these weren't just practical. No, these plums had symbolism. Sourness equals resilience. Acidity equals purification. Pop one of these in your mouth before battle, and it wasn't just about electrolytes, it was about grit. That sharp jolt to the system told your body, wake up. Focus. You're still alive. Historians still argue whether umeboshi were eaten casually or strictly medicinally by samurai. Some journals imply they were chewed during strategy meetings like breath mints. Others claim warriors avoided them unless absolutely necessary, due to their overpowering flavor. The truth? Probably both, depending on rank, region, and the strength of one's taste buds. You finish the plum and let the saltiness linger. There's an afterglow, like embers under your tongue, a strange comfort. Maybe that's the trick. It's awful at first, but then it grows on you, a steady warmth that seeps into your bones. A younger retainer nearby bites into his first umeboshi and lets out an involuntary yelp. Everyone laughs, but no one mocks. It's a rite of passage. You remember your first, too. The accidental hiccup, the full-body twitch, the realization that your ancestors were built different. Some samurai took the ritual further. Before duels, they'd cut umeboshi into quarters and line them up like tokens on a prayer mat. One bite for courage, one for clarity, one for honor, one for death. It's dramatic, sure, but when you're walking into a sword fight, maybe a little ceremony helps. There's even an old belief that umeboshi scare away evil spirits, that the sourness overwhelms the tongue so fully, it makes demons lose interest in possessing you. Imagine that. A fruit so intense it keeps ghosts away. As the day wears on, you slip another plum from your pouch. You're not sick or dueling, just tired. You let it rest on your tongue this time, not biting, just letting the salt and acid soak slowly into your mouth. It's kind of meditative. Meanwhile, down the path, a merchant is selling different grades of umeboshi. The pale pink ones from Kishu, the smaller green ones from Shinano, and the blackened, ultra-aged ones reserved for priests and warriors with seriously self-destructive taste. You make a mental note to avoid the black ones. Even the bravest need boundaries. Nearby, someone's boiling rice in a lidded pot. The scent mingles with your plum. Salt and starch. Classic. Umeboshi and rice were like peanut butter and jelly in Edo terms, especially for warriors on the go. A single rice ball with a plum center could last a journey, hold off a fever, or seal a farewell letter. Yes, they even wrote about these things. One lonely samurai once sent his brother a dried plum wrapped in a poem instead of a letter. It said, "This is my mouth when I remember home." You stare at your own pit and wonder what memories it just unlocked in you. You tuck the seed back into a pouch. You'll keep it. Some warriors did, carrying the pits like talismans, reminders that life could still bite back. The sun is high now. You pat your armor, check your sword, and squint at the heat rising from the road. Another duel? Another guard shift? Another strange snack, surely, but for now you walk with the lingering burn of the umeboshi still curling in your cheeks. And in its own twisted way, it feels like comfort. The rice paddies shimmer in the midday heat as you step away from the training yard, down toward the servant kitchens nestled beside a mossy wall. There's a smoky aroma in the air, something fried, something faintly sweet, something fishy? You follow the scent until you find a cook crouched over a simple iron pan. The flames beneath are low, the oil sizzling gently. What's being lowered into it makes your brow furrow. A fan-shaped ornamental fish tail, dusted in flour, lowered slowly into hot oil. It's koi. Yes, the decorative pond fish. The kind you're supposed to admire in quiet contemplation, not coat in batter. But in Edo, Japan, even beauty wasn't off limits to hungry samurai. Specifically, this is koi no hairage, crispy koi tails, fried until crunchy and dipped in an ash and salt seasoning that smells like charcoal, sea spray, and something oddly metallic. You sit cross-legged and accept a fresh piece. It's hot, and the edges are curled like old paper. You crunch. It's oddly delicate. The flavor is subtle, more about texture and oil and smoke than anything distinctly fishy. The salt's been mixed with powdered pine charcoal, something that makes your tongue tingle and your brain question its life choices. Why koi? Weren't they pets, symbols of perseverance and beauty? Sure. But they were also abundant, especially in temple and estate ponds. When koi overpopulated or reached old age, they were culled. Waste not, want not. Enter the samurai. Frying just the tails was a practical, even humble gesture, using parts considered inedible or ceremonial, and turning them into snacks. It wasn't mainstream, but among certain samurai households known for their austerity, or eccentricity, it became a quirky little tradition. Historians still argue whether koi tail snacks were widespread or just niche palace curiosities. Some claim they originated with a Kyoto clan who believed that consuming the spirit of perseverance, koi's symbolic trait, could bolster their sword arm. Others believe it was just rich people getting creative with leftovers, and koi weren't just tail fodder. Some recipes involved boiling the entire fish in soy and sugar for hours until it turned to jelly. But tails? Tails were portable, friable, and frankly, a lot easier on the conscience than biting into the head of something you once bowed to in a garden ceremony. The ash salt adds a rustic flair. It was made by burning pine branches and mixing the fine powder with sea salt. In some regions, it was also mixed with dried chrysanthemum petals for a faint floral aftertaste. You can't quite detect it, but maybe your palate's still reeling from that pickled plum. Beside you, another retainer crunches on his koi chip like it's the world's fanciest potato crisp. Better than rice crackers? He shrugs. You're not entirely convinced. The cook tells you, half serious, half joking, that the blacker the tail, the more luck it brings. Burnt koi means a burnt past, and eating it symbolizes letting go. You silently dedicate your tail to that one duel you lost last winter, and take another bite. There's also an old samurai drinking game tied to koi tails. Each warrior was given a different type of tail, some from gold koi, some from white, some speckled. The colors were matched to different fortunes: victory, misfortune, love, madness. You'd fry your tail, eat it, and await your fate. Like edible omens dipped in oil. You reach for a second piece and dip it, this time in a mixture of fermented plum paste and sake. The contrast is wild, crisp, bitter, smoky, then shockingly sweet. You blink. Somehow it works. Around you the kitchen clatters with bowls and pots. A cat slips underfoot, tail flicking. Someone chops burdock root like a taiko drum. The koi tails keep coming, crisped and golden and slightly curved, like little fried commas punctuating the midday calm. You lean back on your hands, belly full of fish and questions. You're still not sure if it's right to eat something once revered in poems and paintings. But the taste lingers. Like regret or nostalgia. You dust your hands off. Somewhere nearby, a whistle signals the next drill. You rise slowly, crunch echoing in your ears. Beauty fades. Fish fry. And even symbols get eaten when the oil is hot enough. The afternoon haze hangs thick and golden as you move toward the forest edge, where a small open-air pavilion stands. More a hunting shack than a dining room. And yet inside, a group of off-duty samurai sit cross-legged, the atmosphere solemn, smoky, and filled with the unmistakable scent of boiled bristles? Someone lifts a lid from a clay pot and immediately, a heavy aroma wafts into the air. Musky, earthy, meaty, with a strange, sharp sweetness. You peer in. A boar's snout, nose, nostrils, cartilage and all, glistens in a bath of broth that smells vaguely like pine and molasses. Welcome to Inoshishi no Hanazukeyu, boiled boar nose with pine resin glaze. It is exactly what it sounds like. And yes, you're going to eat it. A thick slice is lifted from the pot with tongs made from bamboo. The skin is gelatinous, flecked with stiff hairs that haven't fully melted away. The glaze? Made from reduced pine resin, mixed with mirin and crushed pepper leaves. It coats the snout like a lacquer you bite. It's chewy, springy, rich, like if a gummy bear and pork belly had a child raised in the forest. The taste? Surprisingly good. Gamey, yes, but layered. And the glaze adds a strange brightness that lifts it from the swampy depths of its texture. This was not a meal for the faint-hearted. Boar nose was considered a hunter's prize, something earned. The boar itself was dangerous, wild, symbolically associated with ferocity and stubbornness. To eat its nose, the very thing it used to root and ram, was an act of dominance, and strangely, of reverence. Boar meat in general was common in colder regions of Edo, Japan, where agriculture was harder and forests were thick. Samurai stationed there relied on hunting not just for sport, but for subsistence. And noses? That was the prize cut, rare, not easily found on market stalls. The kind of thing you had to take yourself, blade to snout. Historians still argue whether this dish was regional necessity or status signaling. Some sources suggest it originated with mountain ascetics, who believed that eating power parts of animals gave spiritual strength. Others claim certain warlords developed a taste for the chewy, collagen-rich cut and turned it into a palace delicacy. Either way, you're chewing on a piece of face. A very committed, very bold piece of face. There's also the matter of the glaze. Pine resin wasn't exactly a staple seasoning, but it had ceremonial meaning, used in incense, torch-making, even medicine. Eating it, a little risky, but properly prepared, it added both aroma and symbolism. The idea was simple. Let the resilience of pine, the sharpness of the forest, coat your kill. A retired archer across from you explains that he always eats boar nose before a tournament. Makes me aim straighter, he grins, licking resin from his fingers. Another samurai mutters that it keeps the cold out of your bones. Who needs science when your bones believe? There's even a strange folk belief that eating boar nose grants you temporary invincibility. Just 1 hour. Some warriors would plan meals around it. One diary entry describes a duel scheduled precisely 30 minutes after the final bite. Was it superstition or strategy? You finish your slice and wash it down with a sip of cloudy sake. The aftertaste is smoky sweet, tinged with wildness. You feel heavier, grounded, like you've eaten something that could still charge at you if it wanted to. Outside, the trees rustle. A cicada clicks somewhere above. Someone's sharpening a blade nearby. Steel singing against stone. The smell of pine lingers in the air, and for a moment you feel like you're in the boar's world instead of your own. A second slice arrives. This one has a tiny curled nostril still visible. You pause, consider, then bite in anyway. You're a samurai. You've already eaten fermented guts, bug crackers, and raw fish twitching on a rock. A pig nose dipped in tree sap is honestly just another Tuesday. As the sun tilts west, casting long shadows from the forest trees, you pat your stomach and rise. Your fingers are sticky with resin, your breath tinged with pork. The world feels more wild than it did this morning. And somehow that feels right. You wipe your hands on a reed cloth and step back onto the path, onward. Perhaps towards something crunchy or something dried, or maybe something that used to sting. But for now, you walk with the nose of a wild beast inside you. And maybe, just maybe, that gives your stride a little more force. The shadows stretch longer now, dappled through the swaying bamboo as you follow the narrow path that snakes around the back gardens of the estate. The air is cooler here, the wind softer, carrying the faint scent of the river. But there's something else in the air, something faintly fishy, vaguely oceanic, and unmistakably rubbery. You round the corner to find three samurai seated on woven mats around a brazier. Laid out beside them in neat rows on clean lacquer trays are what look like translucent petals of dried plastic. You blink. Are those jellyfish? Yes, yes they are. Welcome to Kurage Senbei. Dried jellyfish chips. A snack that only looks inedible. You take a seat and accept one between your fingertips. It's paper thin, ridged like old parchment, and slightly curled at the edges like it's afraid of your teeth. You bite. It crunches, but not like a cracker. More like a dried leaf or old leather that's somehow brittle. The flavor? Elusive. Salty but barely. Mostly it tastes like the sea at low tide, with an echo of mineral and a long ghostly finish. Not offensive, just confusing. Jellyfish wasn't a common protein in the traditional samurai diet, but among certain coastal domains, particularly those assigned to patrol rocky shores or remote islands, it became a delicacy born of boredom. The warriors weren't just eating for sustenance, they were also finding ways to pass the time. And drying jellyfish was part science experiment, part culinary dare. Historians still argue whether dried jellyfish snacks were first used as food or medicine. Some believe it was a byproduct of early marine apothecaries, where jellyfish were dried and ground into powders for joint pain. Others suggest it began as a fisherman's trick, later passed to stationed samurai who took a liking to the strange crunch and used it as a moon-gazing treat. And yes, moon-gazing was a thing. Picture yourself lying back, helmet off, gazing at a full moon while nibbling on something that barely tastes like anything, but carries the cool weight of the ocean. A humble ritual of contemplation. A snack for the spirit. Some diaries from the mid-Edo period mention pairing jellyfish chips with warm sake or roasted chestnuts. Others describe a more elite presentation. Jellyfish chips brushed lightly with plum vinegar, dried again, then served on cedar planks beside whisper-thin sheets of radish. Classy in a crunchy kind of way. You reach for another one and notice that some are slightly pink, others more translucent. The cook explains, different species. Some were moon jellyfish, others were lion's mane. All defanged, dried, and scrubbed of slime. Hopefully. One of the samurai chuckles. The first time I had one, I thought it was parchment. Tried to write on it. You laugh with your mouth closed because, honestly, that still seems like a valid mistake. There's even an old superstition. Eating jellyfish chips during the tsukimi, moon viewing season, will help you remember your dreams more clearly. Some claimed it calmed the nerves before a battle. Others just liked how quiet the snack was. No slurping, no bones, no grease. Just a soft crunch that disappears into your mouth like a thought. And here's a quirky fringe belief. A few mountain temples believed that dried jellyfish contained memory water from the seas they once drifted in. Eating them was thought to help the eater inherit wisdom from past tides. Okay, sure. You're not convinced, but then again, you did just eat a pig's nose. So? The brazier crackles gently. Someone pours warm sake into tiny cups carved from horn. You sip. The jellyfish chip softens slightly in your mouth now, and the ocean note becomes more distinct, like a breeze across tide pools. You realize that part of the charm isn't the taste at all. It's the silence of it. In a world of clashing swords and shouted orders, jellyfish chips were like edible meditation. You chew, you breathe. You forget the weight of your armor for just a moment. And that's the thing. Being a samurai wasn't just fighting. It was stillness, discipline, knowing how to wait, how to observe, and yes, how to eat strange, nearly flavorless things that required patience to appreciate. The sky above shifts to dusky indigo. The brazier glows orange. Someone's retelling an old battle tale, and the words blend with the crunching of jellyfish in a kind of calm, quiet rhythm. You lie back on your mat, belly humming with salt and sea and warmth. Strange snack? Absolutely. But in its quiet defiance of flavor somehow, it might be the most samurai thing you've eaten all day. The moon begins its gentle rise over the rooftops as you stroll back toward your quarters. The evening air cool against your face. Crickets trill in the bushes. Fireflies blink lazily over the garden pond. And somewhere in the distance, the soft clack of a Go game echoes like distant swordplay. It's quiet, reflective, and then your nose catches a smell that yanks your spirit right out of Zen mode. Alcohol, burnt meat, and lizard? You step toward the small veranda where two veteran samurai are seated, legs tucked under them, sipping sake and snacking on what appear to be strips of dried gecko. One of them waves you over and passes you a tiny skewer holding a curled, leathery piece of meat. It glistens faintly. You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Sake-soaked lizard jerky, he says, like it's perfectly normal. For dreams. And courage. You glance at the skewer again. The lizard's tiny feet are still visible. This, you soon learn, is tokaj no sakeni, lizard jerky soaked in warm sake, dried under moonlight, then re-soaked just before serving. You chew. It's chewy, smoky, faintly gamey, like overcooked eel that went camping. The sake cuts the dryness with a soft floral burn, and you swallow before your brain fully processes what just happened. This snack wasn't common, even by Edo standards, but among certain old-school samurai, especially those obsessed with rituals and dream omens, it was whispered about with the same seriousness, usually reserved for death poems and sword forging. Historians still argue whether sake-soaked lizard jerky was truly consumed, or more of a ceremonial curiosity. Some suggest it stemmed from ancient Chinese medicinal beliefs, where dried lizard was said to enhance dream recall, relieve night terrors, and, more practically, treat joint pain. Others claim it was simply a test of bravery. Eat this, the older samurai might say, and sleep like a dragon. There's a rumor in the clan that one daimyo refused to go into battle unless he'd dreamt of victory the night before. Dreams which, his attendants insisted, were only possible after eating exactly 3 lizard strips soaked in plum-scented sake. The plum, apparently, soothed the bitterness. The lizard? It did the magic. You look down at your half-finished strip. It doesn't taste magical. But there's something oddly satisfying about it, as if you're chewing on a secret. One of the samurai offers you a refill of hot sake, poured carefully from a gourd painted with fading brushstrokes. He plucks another strip from a wooden dish and pops it into his mouth without blinking. Takes me back, he mutters. You don't ask where. The process of making this jerky was elaborate. First, the lizards, usually tree geckos or small skinks, had to be caught at night, believed to be more dream-charged then. They were dried slowly over cedar smoke, then soaked in sake infused with herbs like mokusei and dried yuzu peel. After a second drying, they were wrapped in silk and stored in a scroll case for a week. The final soaking? Done in warm sack just before eating. Yes, it's that serious. And not everyone approved. Some samurai scoffed at it, calling it witch food. Others swore by it. One journal describes a group of warriors who passed around lizard jerky before writing their jisei, death, poems, claiming it opened the gate between the soul and the ink. There's also an eerie fringe belief that lizard jerky could bring clarity to dreams of ancestors. Eat it on the night of the blood moon, one scroll warns, and you may hear a voice you thought long silent. Comforting. You bite into a second strip, softer now from the warm sake. The taste has mellowed, but your mind feels sharper, or maybe just more alert to how weird your life has become. Still, there's peace in this moment. The crackle of an oil lantern, the warmth of rice wine, The taste of, well, dried reptile, and the sense that, somehow, this odd little ritual ties you to hundreds of other warriors who once sat exactly where you are, licking their fingers and wondering what tomorrow might bring. You gaze up at the moon. Round, bright, silent. A quiet voice beside you speaks without looking. If you see someone in your dreams tonight, ask them their name. Then write it down. You nod. Just a little. Then finish your jerky, drink your sake, and let the warmth settle into your bones. Whatever's next, you'll be ready. Maybe. Probably. The fireflies blink a little more slowly now, and the breeze carries the first hint of nighttime dew. You wander away from the sack-soaked lizards and their sleepy dream-keepers, passing stone lanterns that glow faintly in the moonlight. The hour is late, but there's still a stir of activity near the sparring field. A low murmur of voices, a rustle of armor, and a familiar sound. The click and crunch of someone chewing something with commitment. You approach and spot two young samurai leaning against the archery post, chewing intently from small pouches at their waists. You know that look. It's the pre-duel ritual snack. You gesture for a taste. One tosses you a pouch with a little embroidered cricket stitched on the flap. You open it and blink. Inside, roasted cricket legs, tiny and glossy, mingled with soy-roasted soybeans, dried kelp shreds, and pickled burdock root. Like trail mix, if the trail were paved with chirps and antennae. This is Kurogi no tatami mix, cricket leg trail mix, and you eat it before combat. Not because it's delicious, it's not, but because it keeps you grounded, energized, and weirdly focused. You pick out a cricket leg, crisp and curved like a blackened comma, and bite down. The crunch is real. It's nutty, a little salty, and almost spicy, especially when paired with the fermented soybean crumbs scattered throughout. A tiny foot sticks to your tongue. You carry on. Insects were a common protein source during the Edo period, especially in rural regions, but this particular blend had a specific niche. Samurai in preparation mode. Light, portable, brimming with protein and calcium. Easy to store, quick to eat, and, according to some, mood stabilizing. Historians still argue whether this kind of insect mix was genuinely widespread or the invention of one particular martial clan from central Honshu, known for their unconventional methods and appetite for warrior endurance foods. One scroll refers to it as chirping courage. Another dismisses it as peasants' snacks. Dressed in armor, and yet it stuck around. Because the effect? It worked. Some warriors swore the rhythmic crunch of cricket legs was soothing, like a chant, something to focus on while sharpening a blade or reciting a death poem. The protein helped steady the nerves. The salt helped with hydration. And the weirdness of it? That helped with perspective. You can't be afraid of an enemy when you're halfway through chewing a beetle foot. You reach for another handful and this time get a bite of burdock root, earthy and sharp, paired with kelp that tastes like the sea. The layering makes sense. It's not gourmet, but it's functional, thoughtful, designed to give you everything you need in just a few bites. Energy, alertness, resilience. One of the samurai next to you jokes, "Eat enough of this, and you'll dodge arrows by hearing them first." You smile and raise an eyebrow. "You mean like crickets?" He nods seriously. "Exactly like crickets." There was even a folk belief in some castles that eating cricket legs before battle would lend you the insect's heightened awareness. Eyes on both sides of the head, able to see danger from any angle. A few retainers even wore tiny cricket charms on their armor cords, believing them to be good luck. One legend tells of a young fighter who survived 7 ambushes, crediting the cricket trail mix for keeping him alive. Then again, he also drank pine needle broth, so who's to say? The sky deepens. Torches are lit. Shadows lengthen. You finish your handful and lick the salt from your fingers. The taste of soy and toasted bug legs lingers on your tongue like a memory you didn't mean to keep. The two samurai shoulder their swords and nod. "Time to train." You nod back, not just in solidarity, but because you feel ready. A little gross, yes, but also light, sharp, and strangely balanced. As they step into the practice yard, you feel the residual crunch between your teeth, like a tiny drumbeat in your jaw. Not unpleasant, not forgettable, just samurai. And as weird as it was, there's a certain peace in knowing your battle snacks chirped louder than your nerves. The night has settled now, full and velvet, wrapping the compound in shadows soft enough to silence even the most watchful guards. The torches flicker low, and your footsteps fall quieter on the stones as you drift toward the northern pantry, a place usually reserved for the more refined, the more controversial indulgences. Tonight, something rich calls to you. You follow your nose to a table laid with thick slabs of wax paper, each supporting a glistening cube the color of pale ivory, ringed with delicate orange powder. The scent is powerful, smoky, fatty, slightly sweet. Whale fat. Specifically, Kujira no Abura, rendered whale blubber, cubed, chilled, and dusted with shaved persimmon peel. You hesitate. It looks like something between a candle and a dessert. You're not sure if you should eat it or light it. But this is no mistake. You pick one up. It's surprisingly soft, almost buttery. You bite. It melts instantly, greasy, yes, but smooth, rich, deeply oceanic. The persimmon-rind dust adds a zing of brightness, a citrusy floral lift that saves it from sinking completely into heaviness. This was a samurai luxury. Not an everyday food, but a reward. A statement. Whale fat was expensive, not just to acquire but to transport and preserve. Only certain coastal clans had regular access to it, and even then, it was treated with a kind of reverent frugality. Boiled, strained, rendered, cooled into cubes, then portioned out like gold. And it was never just served plain. Persimmon peel wasn't just for taste. It symbolized longevity and good health. Drying it required patience, and shaving it thin enough to use as dust was considered a test of a cook's precision. Together, the rich whale and the bright peel balanced like sword and scabbard. Historians still argue whether samurai consumed whale fat regularly or only in ceremonies. Some castle records list it among winter rations for elite guards. Others hint that it was offered to visiting dignitaries as a form of culinary diplomacy. Either way, you're chewing through something that once made shoguns pause and nobles raise their eyebrows. Whaling in Edo, Japan was, by this period, an organized affair. Entire fishing towns depended on it. The meat was sold, but the fat? Reserved. In some domains, samurai had yearly allotments of abura, some to burn, some to eat. Guess which use they secretly preferred? There's even an account of a duel postponed due to a shipment of whale blubber arriving mid-morning. The challenger agreed to delay, citing his opponent's right to a proper taste. The scroll reads, "Priorities, right?" You nibble another cube. The texture shifts from firm to melting in seconds. It coats your mouth in warmth, like candlelight on the tongue. The persimmon dust lingers, delicate and perfumed, the taste of harvest wrapped in animal power. Not everyone could stomach it. Some younger retainers scoffed, too rich, too oily. Others adored it, savoring each piece like treasure. You? Somewhere in between. But there's no denying the quiet intensity of it. You feel calmer, heavier, anchored. One elder speaks quietly, almost whispering, "Eat this before sleep, and you'll wake without hunger. Eat it before a duel, and your hands won't shake." You believe him. You don't know why. Maybe it's the way his eyes never blink. There's a bowl of pickled chrysanthemum petals nearby, meant as a chaser. You try one. Bitter. Floral. The perfect counterpoint to the dense oil now resting behind your teeth. You sit back. The whale cubes are nearly gone. The paper beneath them is translucent from the fat. Outside, the cicadas have gone quiet. The fireflies have vanished. And somewhere in the garden, a wind chime sounds once, then falls still. The samurai who loved whale fat weren't just eating. They were meditating on wealth, on mortality, on indulgence, on how even a warrior's tongue deserved comfort once in a while. You rise slowly, heavy and satisfied. There's no training tonight, no poetry, no dream-jerky rituals, just the quiet echo of grease and sweetness in your mouth, and the slow, Sleepy understanding that today's journey is done. You return to your sleeping mat, the paper doors sliding closed behind you with that familiar wooden whisper. The lamps are dim now, just a faint golden pool beside your bedding, casting long shadows that stretch across the tatami like soft brush strokes. Your body is full, heavy in the best way. You feel every strange flavor still humming inside your belly. The vinegar sting of pickled plum, the soft oil of fried koi, the crunch of cricket legs, the whispery melt of whale fat. All of it blends now into one warm, slow thrum, like the hush of a distant drum carried on mountain wind. You lie back and pull the thin blanket over your chest, arms still faintly smelling of resin and sake and salt. Your mind wanders, like it always does right before sleep. You think of rivers and raw fish, of lizards and poetry, of bug legs and duels, of jellyfish chips under moonlight. You breathe in slowly. Let it out even slower. There's a peaceful weight to the quiet, a rhythm in the stillness, a strange comfort in knowing that even the toughest warriors once sat by fires, chewing something odd, sharing a story, and slowly, gently, drifting off. So wherever you are, on a futon or a couch, in a distant city or a quiet corner of home, let the lights stay low, let the hum of the world soften, and let your breath carry you deeper into the still night. The samurai are quiet now, and so are you. End of script. Sweet dreams.